Okay, so what we're going to do is talk to Casey about his life as a filmmaker, where he started, where he's ended up, and I think where you're going to go in the future.
This set is amazing, by the way.
It's pretty cool.
It's so fancy. It's so exciting.
Also, I think it's important to mention that about 2 months ago you had your baby daughter.
Yeah, this is like really one of the first times that I've been away from the family since my new daughter was born.
So guys, let's welcome Georgie into the world.
Thank you.
Big Polish welcome.
You know, Candace, my wife Candace, was jealous that she wasn't able to come, but it was difficult with 2 little ones at home. Otherwise, she'd be here with me, and we probably would have made it a longer stay.
I hear you. Okay. Well, the foundation is all about promoting Poland. That's our mission, and I'm pretty much sure that everybody in this room cares about promoting Poland. What do you think a good way countries can do content online is?
Well, I think that this is true for almost any sort of branding. Is that because of social media, because of the internet, because of things like outlets like YouTube, we've all become numb to things that just feel like kind of boring marketing or advertising. I think that if you want a message communicated, it has to be communicated truthfully and from a place of integrity and a place of honesty. So, you know, I know, like, when I came here, I put as much camera gear as I could into my backpack because I knew that this would be a wonderful first-time experience for me. So I want to share it because I want to share with my audience what it's like for me to be here. And, you know, it's not like I'm being told to share something, it's not like being asked to share something. I'm doing it because I genuinely want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think to be on the other side of that, like when you're watching a YouTube video, you're flipping through someone's Instagram, when you see something that someone else genuinely cares about, it's a kind of bond with that content that just isn't there when you see like a commercial for Pepsi on television, which feels by its very nature, you know, unauthentic.
Yeah. So let's go back in time now to the early Casey. You're one of 4 children, grew up in Connecticut, and you've explained in other videos about how you felt wonderfully free, you were given a lot of freedom at that time, but also that you had some kind of challenges growing up, especially within the education system. Can you just take us through what that experience was like?
Yeah, you know, I always thought I had really bad parents until I grew up and then I realized that they were probably pretty good parents. And I think that I would sort of describe my childhood as like wonderfully unsupervised. No one was ever there. We used to play on the train tracks where there was an actual train came by like 4 times a day. That was our playground. And I think that I'm sort of the last generation to grow up without video games, without internet, without social media. And I worry, like my 4-year-old daughter's favorite thing to do is to watch, you know, stupid Baby Shark videos on an iPad. And my favorite thing to do when I was a kid was to play in the dirt. And I think so much of that exploration as a youngster really gave me the kind of curiosity that fuels a lot of the content that I made today. And then more specifically about my education, you know, I think that, you know, I grew up in a lower middle class family and we didn't really have any options besides the one school that was available to us. And I never fit in there. I always struggled with, you know, both the curriculum and the teachers and the structure around me. And the way I dealt with that frustration was by rebelling. I was bad. I was sort of every teacher's worst nightmare. And I think that created a lot of challenges for me sort of in my early years.
Has it helped you? Can you see now the benefits of some of that now in your behavior?
Well, now I can look back and say with confidence that I was right and they were all wrong. I say that in jest, but it has helped me because I think that, you know, in a school system like that, an environment like that, the only way you can succeed in that environment is to conform. You have to do things the way that they're meant to be done or you're wrong, or you fail. And by sort of rejecting that as a kid, it sort of taught me that I can pave my own way, I can find my own path. And I think that captures much of the kind of ethos behind both the work that I've done as an entrepreneur and starting companies and the work that I've done as a filmmaker and making videos.
So you've got an older son, Owen, and 2 daughters as well. Do you try and help use that experience to teach them how?
No, absolutely not. My kids better do good in school or they get the hand. No, I'm very lucky. You know, my younger daughter, Francine, she's still a little one, so she hasn't actually entered a proper school system yet. And Owen is in college, and I'm very lucky. He is like a perfect student. He gets the highest marks, and He loves it, and I think he enjoys education in a way that I never did. So I think that if I had a kid like myself, I don't know what I would do, but I thank God I don't. Can you imagine little Casey running around? It's a nightmare.
All right, well, I'm going to check if we've got a few Caseys amongst us. Have we got anyone in the room here who's a content creator or a YouTube content creator right now? Hands in the air, please.
Oh, amazing.
Have we got anyone who's a filmmaker, maybe doesn't consider themselves a YouTuber? Hands in the air. So I'd say over half the room right now are on some stage of the journey of being a content creator.
These guys have cameras, man. I love that. I think, like, you know, I could speak about that for days, but I think that this is an amazing time to be a filmmaker. Whether you use YouTube or you put your movies in film festivals or movie theaters, it's an amazing time. What like this one camera enables me to do is something that was completely inaccessible to me when I was young. Or what my cell phone camera enables me to do is something that I could have never done when I was young.
But what's interesting is your race has stayed pretty consistent throughout the period.
Yeah, I mean, for me there's something about always maintaining this idea that it's just one person making them. I always think that, like, you know, tattoos are interesting, but I think scars are way more interesting. Because when you have a scar, there's a story behind it. It's a wound, it's something that happened. And when I make videos, I always try to leave the imperfections in, because it shows that those videos were made by a human being, and human beings are flawed. I did a talk once called Perfection Erases Humanity. And I think that the more perfect something is, the less sort of human it is. So even though I think technology has enabled me to make things that could look perfect, I always work hard to make sure that you know, you can see my signature. You can see that I made that with my hands. Yeah.
Let's go back to your first film then, done with that old school technology, which was Owen Visits the Zoo, I think, in New York.
Yeah, that's one of the first ones.
And you said you caught the bug, you caught that love of filmmaking. Just take us back to that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I first started, you know, when you're kind of like a high school dropout and you're a runaway and have a kid when you're very young, nobody listens to you. And that was sort of the frustration that I felt in my years as kind of a teenager, was that nobody ever would listen to me. I struggled to express myself. And even in my very first videos, which were all pretty terrible and unwatchable, and they were all about my kid, I found a form of self-expression that felt real. I found a form of self-expression that finally I felt like I found my voice. Even though I could say things and no one would listen, I was never being heard. But when I made a video, people would watch it. And all of a sudden I felt like I could be heard. I felt like I found a stage I could stand on and scream and people would listen.
And if that hadn't happened, where do you think you'd be today?
Oh, I'd definitely be an astronaut. No question. Or a professional athlete. Probably an astronaut, though.
Because those times were hard, weren't they? I mean, you were doing pretty terrible jobs, I think it's be fair to say.
Yeah, but you know, I think that it's always... I never feel bad for people who have had tough times in their lives. I feel bad for people who don't. I feel bad for, you know, trust fund babies who never have experienced struggle. So I think it is the hard times in our lives that define who we are. It's always those tough times that shape who you are as a person and give you an appreciation for things. And, you know, I always say that there's a moment in everyone's life where you just sort of stop. And that moment of arrested development defines who you are for the rest of your life. And, you know, I'm 37 years old now, and I've found success in my career, and I've got a loving family at home, and I found some stability and security and all these things that I think, you know, any human being would strive for. But when I close my eyes and ask myself who I am, I'm still that 17-year-old who, you know, washes dishes for a living, lives in a trailer park, and takes money from the government to feed my kid, and everybody sort of laughs at. I am that loser. So all the work that I do is pushing back against that. So I'm very thankful I have that.
I'm sure there's a few people in the room who can pretty much
I think a lot of people can identify with that. And I think everybody's story is different, but I think it's always the struggle that pushes you to do something that is good or that is great.
There's equally a side of our ego that loves the comments, loves the adoration, can't really get away from it now because it's on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube as well. How do you ensure yourself from kind of not taking all that stuff?
Oh no, it goes straight to I hate it. It totally messes with my head. I try not to pay attention to it, but anybody who says they don't read comments is full of they're lying. No, I hate it. It's never It's never pleasant. It's the most discouraging thing.
The actual praise?
No, the praise is great. The negative stuff is so damaging. You know, it's like you can read 100 really positive comments and then one that's negative, and you will never remember those 100. It's that one.
Yeah, and YouTube has got a problem with its comment section, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a cesspool. It's just, I mean, YouTube's not alone. I think Twitter has the similar struggles where it's just so easy to say something terrible that anybody who's having a bad day or maybe doesn't understand or doesn't consider the repercussions of their words just does it. But on the other end of that, it's sort of a human being. And you know, I don't know how celebrities, real celebrities, not Adobe YouTubers like me, I don't know how a Kim Kardashian deals with this sort of criticism that she gets. I'm not vouching for Kim Kardashian, it's just, there's a vitriol that's thrown at her. There's a vitriol that's thrown at people. I don't know how people are able to sort of exist in a world with that much negativity.
Let's go back in time a little bit to your early career in New York when you decided you were going to be a filmmaker.
Sure.
It's quite a rare thing in those days. And you were convinced this was your absolute mission. You stuck by it. You must have had so many setbacks in those early years. Did you always have that drive and determination?
Yeah, I mean, there's something really motivating about not having a safety net. There's something motivating about not having a plan B. If there is no plan B, it's plan A. And I always say that, like, there's a surefire way to succeed in life. It's guaranteed. And that's to never give up. Because you will either succeed or you'll just die. Because you'll go your whole life trying. And if you die, whatever, you'll never know you didn't make it. But chances are you will find some success if you commit everything you are to it. And you know, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have parents that could give me money. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have a college degree I could fall back on. I had no other place to go but to chase down the one thing that I loved doing and I thought I could make a living at. And I think that's a really powerful force.
Let's also talk about your change from a filmmaker to a YouTuber, because you're pretty clear about that. You're a content creator on YouTube.
Sure, I mean, I think those labels are so annoying and frustrating, and those labels come always externally. They're never kind of self-determined. But I think that YouTube is a fantastic distribution medium for any kind of content. And I used to make 3-minute videos and put them on the internet, and I was a filmmaker. And then I made 3-minute videos and put them on the internet, and then I became a YouTuber. So I think it has more to do with how the world around me changed versus how the kind of content that I make changed. I don't mind any of those titles. I embrace all of them. I don't really know what content creator means. I don't know what sort of YouTuber means or filmmaker means. I've always just made whatever it is that excites me.
And that's the question, which is what inspires you? You've done so much content. When you wake up in the morning, you never have a video creator's blockage in your head thinking, God, I haven't got anything to say to that.
I mean, there are days when I just don't want to make anything, but there's never a shortage of ideas. For every video that I finish or something that I create, there's an entire notebook full of ideas that go unrealized. Like even today, like on the ride here, I was like typing into my phone ideas for movies. So no, there's never a shortage of ideas. And I think that comes along with removing the preciousness of storytelling or filmmaking. I never put content up on a pedestal. I like make a video and I post it, and if people love it, great. If people hate it, no big deal. I'm already making the next one. And when you remove that preciousness, it's very freeing. So any idea that I have can become something.
Let's talk about business. You were at the co-working space this morning. You met the Prime Minister. What happened there? Can you just tell us a little digest of what you saw?
Well, I mean, the co-working space is such an exciting thing to have experienced. Despite being a high school dropout, I was invited to work at the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Media Lab, which is a gigantic sort of lab in Boston, Massachusetts, that is very much so feels like a collaborative working space. And when I was there, I was able to sort of see for the first time in my life just how infectious it is to be around other incredibly smart individuals that are pursuing their own passions. So when I was at the co-working space this morning, it was just really amazing to see such a vibrant community of entrepreneurs all pursuing their own paths. And in a place like New York City, space is such a premium. So you look at something like what you're doing here, and I definitely draw inspiration from places like that when I think of what we're trying to do with my new company. which is effectively create a space, much smaller than what you guys have, but create a space that can enable creators that are lacking in resources but have sort of the drive and the desire to make.
And you had about a 20-minute chat with the Prime Minister. Can you give us a little sneak preview into what you two discussed?
I think it went well. I don't know, I wore a tie.
Did you film it?
I filmed some of it. It's really awkward, like, talking to somebody when you have, like, it's like, great to meet you, bro. It's, you know, it's challenging, but I think it was a good talk, and it was very interesting to be able to hear some of his ideas and motivations behind creating the collaborative co-working space and ambitions regarding gaming and just the idea that, you know, government at that level, there's such a keen understanding and awareness of the need and importance of entrepreneurship and embracing new mediums and new technologies.
So we're going to come on to 368 because you haven't mentioned it, the actual name yet, but that's the co-working space that you're setting up yourself in New York. Can you just tell us what it is? And I'm going to see if we can maybe check if any Polish creators can come there.
Yeah, I mean, so it's co-working spaces have sort of their own definition, and I would push back at the idea that we're just a co-working space. But basically, this is sort of the mission or the motivation behind starting that, is that you have an entire generation of individuals that aspire to be creators. So you have this whole generation, and then you have YouTube. And there's sort of nothing in between. If you want to be a doctor, there's a path to get there. And if you want to be a musician, there's historically paths to become a musician or an athlete or anything else. But I think because YouTube is so new, and there's such a little sort of infrastructure and understanding as to how you might be able to find a level of success in the platform, that why not create a physical space and a company that can enable and support and elevate the community so there can be a more shared understanding of how to find success on the platform.
And is it full right now?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what full means, but we're 100%. Finding our footing. You know, like, my last company, Beam, was venture-backed, so we raised a whole bunch of money from venture capitalists, we built a company, and we were able to sell it. I didn't want to do it this time. I didn't want to ask people for money to start this company, so we're bootstrapping it. So we're starting small and slow, and we're slowly building, and, you know, in order to be a company, we have to have more money coming in than we're spending. That's very challenging. But all the while, we are slowly chipping away at that mission and bringing in creators, and we've done a number of really interesting talks. You know, and on Monday, 4 days from now, we've got the CEO of GoPro coming in. Is today Friday? What day is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Today's Friday?
Yeah.
Good Lord. Today, Super Smash Brothers comes out on Nintendo, right? Is it amazing? So, you know, like, today that game comes out, and it's a really fun game to play. So today we're doing like a gaming tournament with cash prizes that a company came in and put the money up, which means we had to bring together, you know, a lot of the gaming community in New York City just to come together and physically be together. Because I think the more you're around like-minded individuals, the more interesting things that happen. And I think that with YouTube in particular, it's such an isolating platform. Most of the time, it's just idiots like me sitting in a bedroom talking into a camera. It's very lonely. So by putting us together, by putting creators together in a single space, the hope is to generate some sort of collective thought and understanding around how to succeed in the platform.
So guys, does anyone want to go to 368?
That's like,
what do you reckon, Casey?
That's like 20 people. We can definitely accommodate 20 people.
Come and grab Casey afterwards.
Yeah, grab me.
All right, so 368 is obviously your latest venture, but you just mentioned Beam, which I think you've been pretty open and was a quite traumatic experience in some respects, like how you came through that.
You know, I think that was a lot of the takeaway. You know, it's funny because when I left my own company, I had, you know, like, my parents were like, are you okay, buddy? You gonna be all right? And all of my friends from the startup community were like, hey man, congrats. And I think I lean more towards the congrats part. Like, I think we built something successful. We did some really interesting things. We were eventually acquired, which brought in a ton of resources. Yeah. And that was an environment that I didn't thrive in the way that I'd hoped to. And because of that, I ultimately left. But I look at even the work that they're doing today, and look at the kind of work that Beam as a company is creating under CNN. I think it's fantastic. I still think that they're creating some of the best news in the world of new media that's out there. And to know that I, in some part, had something to do with creating that in its earliest days is a tremendous sense of pride for me. So when I look back at that company and that experience and those 5 years of my life, I've got nothing but you know, happy thoughts, and I'm extremely proud of what we were able to do with that company.
Revenue generation is obviously so crucial for content creators, and so often it takes a very long time to make any money. What are your recommendations for anyone here right now who's either starting their journeys and growing to 50, 100,000 subscribers and still isn't seeing anything really coming in?
Get a day job.
Start a business?
Not necessarily. You know, I always say, like, make a living so you can make videos. Don't make a video so you can make a living. I think that you have to constantly be asking yourself why you want to do what it is you're doing. And I think if anyone who wants to be a YouTuber to get rich and famous, like, give up immediately. That is a horrible, horrible reason to do anything. I think want to be a YouTuber because you have a perspective that you want to share. You have ideas that you want to put out there. You have things you want to make. You're driven by the creativity. And if you find a level of success that enables you to make a living from it, well, that's unbelievably fantastic. But I know a number of people who play the guitar, and they've done it since they were young, and they do it because they love it, not because they think they're going to make money at it. And I think that content creation and making movies and videos should be the same thing.
What about avoiding burnout? Another common problem.
You're asking the wrong person. I'm so burned out right now, I can barely open my eyes. I think that the trouble with YouTube is that it requires a kind of commitment that is unrelenting if you want to maintain your presence. You know, Winston Churchill described an offensive in war, World War II and World War I. He described an offensive like taking a mop bucket and throwing it across the floor. And it pushes, but eventually it stops. And then it starts to dry up. And if you want to go further, you gotta throw another mop bucket. And then it goes, and then it dries up. You wanna get further, you gotta throw another mop bucket. And being relevant on YouTube is the exact same thing. You've gotta throw that mop bucket, which is make a great video, and then before it dries up, you gotta hit them with another one, and then another one, and then another one. It's unrelenting. And if ever you should take a break, God forbid, your relevancy and your audience dries up, and it happens very quickly. And I think that can be a very dangerous thing, to sort of be addicted to that kind of relevancy, the dopamine that is like thumbs up and likes and views. So, you know, the thing that I say, and it's much easier to say than it is to live by, is make content because you want to make great things. Don't do it because you're chasing some sort of relevancy. The Beatles have not released an album in 40 years, but they are still the greatest rock band that's ever been, or one of the greatest rock band that's ever been. So I think if you focus on making things that are great, that will last. Never focus on sort of the relevancy, which will invariably lead to burnout.
Okay. What about what fascinating is your documentation editing process. You haven't talked about that too much online. You create so much video. How do you then document that, process it, and edit it?
Are you asking, like, how do I keep track of everything?
Yeah, because you've got gigabytes, you're working on multiple videos.
No, I'm at hundreds, what comes after terabyte? Does anybody, betabyte? Somebody in here has to know what comes after a terabyte. I have, hundreds, and I think I just crossed like 1,000 terabytes.
How many hard disks do you have?
You know, like over petabyte. I have 8 petabytes of data. And more so than having that data, everything's cataloged. So if you were to ask me right now to pull up footage from March 17, 2014, I could do that in 3 seconds. I have everything perfectly cataloged. And I think once you have a smart system in place, that's very easy to do. I have a friend who's a fantastic YouTuber named Roman Atwood, who's done a daily vlog for 5 or 6 years, and he deletes everything the minute he uploads it. He saves none of his footage. It's only what he puts out there in the world that exists. And that, like, my brain exploded when he said that, but there's almost something freeing about that. I'm the opposite. I'm like, whatever the equivalent of a modern day hoarder is what I am with my content. Never delete anything, catalog everything, with some sort of naive thought that in the future somebody will go back and figure out what to do with all of these archives. But no, I'm extremely diligent about cataloging, and I think it makes the process much easier.
And the editing side of things, like, do you enjoy the editing?
No, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It is so, my least favorite thing to say, when people say this, I want to smack them, is when people are like, I made a great video, I just need to edit it. That's like going to the grocery store, bringing home chicken and being like, I got a great dinner, I just have to cook it. It doesn't count until you've edited. Editing is the hardest thing. It is slow, it's painful, it's thankless. And a perfect edit is an edit that the audience doesn't recognize. When you see a truly great movie, you don't see the edit at all. You just see a beautifully told story.
And how many times have you thought, oh, just go to render, is good enough?
Never. I'll not release something. But I'll never export unless I think that it's the very best version of whatever it is that it could possibly be. Because once it's out there, there's no taking it back.
Yeah. Let's talk about trends. Okay, where are you going in the future? Are you going to develop any new video projects? What do you think is exciting in terms of platforms? A bit of diversification on platforms?
You mean besides your socks?
Oh, dude, I was waiting for you to mention this the whole half an hour.
You know, I don't know. I love YouTube and I love putting movies out on YouTube, but I'm coming up on 3 billion views and almost 11 million subscribers, and I'd be lying if I said that there isn't a little itch that I want to scratch, which is to go back and make more features. And the thing that I struggle with right now is I look back the last 2 years and I made 800 movies. And if I want to make a feature, it'll mean committing the next 2 years to one movie. And that's a very hard thing to do. So the short answer is I don't know, but I think that the more nuanced answer is that I won't be doing exactly what I'm doing now too much longer in the future. There will be some big change, mainly because I feel like I've done it. I don't know, about when I cross 1,000 movies. Maybe I've already crossed 1,000 movies. Anybody know? How do you find that out? It's kind of saying somewhere on YouTube, right?
It's on YouTube, yeah.
You know, I feel like in anything you do in life, whether it's a job or an education or a career path, I always think of an orange, and you can squeeze it only so much, and once the juice stops dripping, you have to move on. And I don't believe in lateral movement, I believe in vertical movement. You move on to whatever the next ambition is. I always thought that way when I had, sort of regular jobs, so I never lasted anywhere for more than 2 years. I always thought that way with relationships, but don't take that advice, that's horrible advice. But certainly with this facet of my career, I do see sort of an end game with putting out the content that I'm putting out right now.
Okay, well, we've got time for a couple of questions.
That poor guy right there has to look around, otherwise he's going to be staring at the back of your head, which is so much less interesting. Is this better?
Best view in the house.
It's a beautiful head, but it's
nicely shaped. My mum tells me that all the time. Let's get some questions, I think, from the first row. We've got some content creators here at the front, I believe. Hands in the air, anyone from a content creator at the front? This chap over there, yes, with the nice glasses, that handsome man with the beard. Yes, that one. Yes, that's the one. Microphone, please. Microphone's on the way.
Do you want me to go give him my microphone?
Do you want to go and...
He could just whisper sweet nothings into my ear, and we could go from.
I'm sure it's on the way. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, give Casey a round of applause. He's his own microphone holder.
I got one question. So you're here in Poland for like 24 hours, something like that?
No, it's like 48
less?
hours.
48?
Yeah.
All right. So this is your first time, and you can take some time to answer, but think about one line, one sentence, that you can describe this country, Warsaw, from your eyes, like a foreigner who's here for the first time, like a catchphrase maybe.
Okay, so
really,
come back and answer that question.
I wouldn't have brought him the microphone if I had known he was going to ask such a hard question. I've lived in New York City for almost 20 years, and I don't think I could describe that place with one sentence. I think that experiencing any one place is, for me, always more nuanced than a sentence. I'm a verbose guy, but to sort of characterize what I've seen and what I've experienced, it's like, it's impossible to be in Warsaw and look around and see anything but the history of both this city and this country, and understanding the struggles that you've had geographically and geopolitically, and understanding like the low points and the what this country has had to go through, and then to see how unbelievably vibrant it is today, and see how incredible the city is both physically and then the people in the city, and then like this morning, being around all those entrepreneurs and how wide-eyed they are and how optimistic they are for the future. And that is something that is like, it's rare to find, it's truly amazing. infectious to be around. That's like a paragraph and a half. But if you
I think that deserves a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. That's Poland in the nutshell. Okay. I'm told we now have a microphone, so I'm going to ask for any further questions from.
Can we ask
the audience?
a young lady a question this time? We could maybe go.
We can ask a young lady.
Girl, boy, girl.
We can do boy, girl.
Get some diverse perspectives
There's a lady just over there with a hat.
Does she need my microphone? Oh no, she has her own.
Hi, Casey. Could I come up to you, please, and ask you a question?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds great. While she's coming up, I want to.
He's already married. So.
While she's coming up, I'd like to talk about these lasers. Super exciting. Hi, I'm Casey.
Hi, my name is Arya.
Oh, okay, Arya.
I knew this was going to happen.
Okay, all right.
Have you got a question?
No, no problem. We're just if you guys will just give us a minute.
Okay. So I would like to ask you, what do you think about the fact that YouTube mainly promotes people that release content regularly, instead of like people that really take their time to make a video and are perfectionists? And we're talking about people with like smaller channels, for example, that haven't gained exposure but want to release really good high-end professional videos.
That's a tough question.
Come back and answer that.
I'm gonna wait. What's your name?
Arya Martel.
Arya, I'm gonna answer that question over here, but you can keep filming me.
Okay. Thank you.
I just don't want to get in trouble. I think that you're highlighting one of the struggles that is, sort of finding your way on YouTube. And I don't know what the answer to that question is, and I think that YouTube at times is deserving of the criticism they get, and I think at other times I empathize with YouTube. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's something like 100 million hours of contents uploaded every minute or every day, some ungodly number. So how could YouTube possibly navigate such densely populated waters, and how could they figure out what to promote? I think when it comes to algorithmic promotion, that's a whole nother sort of conundrum and just minefield of what you find algorithmically, and then what's sort of elected to be put out, which is I think how the trending page is chosen. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, other than how would somebody find you? How does somebody find a small channel? What is a democratic way of promoting, I think, all the small channels across YouTube? I love that there's a kid here right now.
He's shouting the question from the back.
I wish that kid would come play with us. But the answer to your question is I have no idea. But I would sort of turn the question around on you, which is like, put yourself in YouTube's shoes. Like, what do you do to try to recognize the hundreds of thousands or millions of small channels out there? And I don't say that figuratively, I don't say that rhetorically. Like, I ask myself that question all the time. That's the very mission of my new company, is how can we help small creators? And when you look at the sort of the vast amount of small creators there are, it's a very daunting question to try to find practical solutions for. I would question though that, I think there's a lot of suggestion of maybe negative intent on YouTube's side, like they're going out of their way to keep small creators down. And I know most of the senior leadership at YouTube personally, and I don't think that is their agenda in any way, shape, or form. I think that they have a nearly impossible task in front of them. Sometimes they do it really well, and sometimes they don't. But I think to acknowledge just how challenging it is to find the good from just the endless amount of content up there is sort of one of the great questions of YouTube, the platform.
I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, that Casey is on a busy schedule, and we have now run out of time.
That was like 2 questions.
I know, 2 questions.
Those are really good questions.
One more question for this gentleman.
Just get into it.
One more question.
Okay, I got it. So I have a question about your running and the relation between your running and your creativity, because you run every day and how it influences your creative process.
I will talk about running all night. Get comfortable, folks. I think in life there are very, very few things that are just yours. Especially now, every single person in here has a cell phone in their pocket. Like, You are never alone in this world anymore, ever. Even on airplanes now, there's internet, there's a stupid TV in front of you. You're never alone with just your thoughts. And I think that we are sort of the first generation in the history of humanity where that is the case. Looking back 15 years ago, that wasn't the case, but that is the case now. And when you're someone who does anything that relies on creativity or creative thought, that is so necessary to enable yourself to be alone, to have those thoughts. And, you know, like, for me, all of my ideas come when I run. It is a time when I'm completely alone. There's no one around me. It's entirely cerebral. You know, after the first 30 seconds, my body's totally in cruise control. And it's the reason why I'm not a particularly fast runner, but I can run for hours on end, never stop. If it's nice outside and I don't have anywhere to be, I'll run for 2 or 3 hours. And it's because it's a time where my brain can just think and focus on whatever I'm struggling with, whatever I'm happy with, whatever I want to figure out, whatever I want to do. But I write all my movies when I run. I'm able to do a lot of self-reflection when I run. For me, running is the same as meditation. And I think that for me it's running, but I think for other people it can be anything else. I think that my wife says it's sort of that moment between when you wake up and when you actually get out of bed. That's her time to think. And I think a lot of people do meditation or yoga, and that's their time to think. But however it manifests, I think that is an extremely important part of life. And for me, attaching it to something that also has health benefits just makes it, you know, my favorite thing in the whole world to do.
Okay. Let's take one last question.
Yeah, let's keep this party going.
Let's make it a girl if we can.
Do we have any young ladies with questions?
There's a lady in the front there.
Do you want me to,
second row.
do you want me to throw you my microphone? How good of a catch are you?
Microphone's coming over.
Okay. I have a question. First of all, thank you so much for coming to Poland, and I just want to say
thank you for having me. It's really wonderful to be here, and before you ask your question, I want to compliment you on matching your sweatshirt to the laser beams, because it's amazing.
that was on purpose. No, but yeah, I also wanted to thank you for being such a big inspiration for me and for other many young creators. And my question is basically, what advice would you give to young starting out creators, just like myself, when they often compare their work to those big YouTubers like you or Peter McKinnon or Dan Mays, you know, and they often might feel like their work is not good enough, so they don't want to upload it. And you know, what advice would you give to those young creators?
I think that's hard, and I think that when people are discouraged by sort of a fear of the unknown or a fear of how their work's going to be received, it's a really damaging thing. And I think that's where sort of comments and when you're putting yourself out there in the world, it can be really dangerous. But overcoming that fear is sort of the first step to being a creator. Beyond that, I think that it's very important to watch all the work that you love, watch all the work that's successful, and then ignore all of it. I think the most surefire way to fail in a place like YouTube is to try to do what somebody else is doing successfully. She's doing it successfully, I want to be successful, so I'm going to copy her. You never will. Someone else is already doing it great, why would they want a photocopy of that? And I think that's something that's very easy to say, and it sounds poetic and compelling, but the reality is, it's very hard to figure out how to be yourself. It's very hard to sort of find a way to uniquely share who you are. But when I look at sort of the newest generation of YouTubers, people that are exploding on the platform, and you think back to a few years ago, it is people doing things now that would have made no sense years before. I remember, you know, before I started my daily vlog in 2015, I used to post 2 movies a month. And I did okay. You know, it took me 5 years and I had 400,000 subscribers, and I think it's a very successful channel. And I started a daily vlog, and every comment on the first, you know, few weeks of my daily vlog were like, why are you daily vlogging? Nobody wants daily vlogs. This is terrible. Go back to what you used to do. And then when I stopped daily vlogging a few years later and I started putting out a few movies a month, everybody's like, why are you putting out a few movies a month? People only want daily vlogs. Go back to daily vlogging. So it's a very Jobsian philosophy, but you know, Steve Jobs used to always talk about people don't know what they want until you put it in front of them. So I think trying to guess people are going to like my work or people aren't going to like my work is a dangerous game. Make what feels good and what feels right and just keep putting it out there, and it will eventually find its audience. And that audience might be small, it might be big, but it will always find its audience.
Okay. Casey, we're definitely running over time. Maybe one more question?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
One last question, Casey.
Yeah, I'm here for
One last
this.
question.
Yeah, I have a question.
First, I'd like to say nice sweatshirt. That's
Yeah,
super dope shirt.
I don't have to come close to you because we met yesterday.
Oh, good to see you again.
Yeah. My question is, you have like 368, your creative space. What do you think we have similar space in Poland? Is it possible that we have some collaboration, or we can do some creative work like Warsaw with New York City? What do you think? Is it possible?
You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I will say that from what I saw this morning of sort of a collective co-working space for entrepreneurs, and from what I've understood, a lot of the ambitions are for elevating sort of young, aspirational individuals in this country. It feels like that there is a momentum there, and there is an interest there, even at a governmental level, to enable people to create and to, I mean, unless I'm far off here, but that's certainly what I felt this morning. As far as finding your own community, I think that's a very, very hard thing to do. I remember the first time, 6 years into making YouTube content, when another sort of big YouTuber recognized me. Or after 6 years of being a YouTuber, I went to VidCon for the first time, and there were other YouTubers there, and they knew me. It was the first time I felt like I was part of a community. So, I don't know what Warsaw or Poland could do. I don't know what they're currently doing to enable a community like that to foster. But I will tell you that it's an extremely difficult thing to do. I've been living it for 10 years, and I'm trying to create a business or a company that does just that, and we have no idea what we're doing. And it's a much harder problem to solve than, I think, sort of the rose-tinted glasses that I look at it through, which is like, let's create a business that enables YouTube creators. Great. How do you actually do that? And it's a very hard question to answer. So I don't have anything tangible for you other than you asked me about it, and a desire and an acknowledgement to pursue something like that is a very necessary and very important first step.
Right, I'm going to take one last question.
How many times are you going to say that? Let's just do 10 more questions.
This is the last time I'm going to say this. There's a lady just over here on your left. She looks...
Casey, I have, I think, a very simple question. Can I take a selfie with you? Yes.
That's a super easy question.
All right, let's have a proper question then from a...
See, I knew he'd say it again.
Oh, no, right. Got it over there.
Okay.
It has to be from a girl. Oh. Okay. Maybe your friend can ask that question.
I would like to ask you about your time from your past. How did you compromise, and how did you set up your priorities while training for a triathlon race? Because you have to swim, you have to bike, and you have to run as well. So what about your work? What about your relationship with Candice? And how did you set the priorities?
One thing, I used to race triathlon. I was actually on a pro team for a few years, and the question was sort of how did I balance my work? How did I find a work-life balance between training to be an athlete and working? And the answer is I didn't. Candice always describes those years as like the hell years with our relationship, because our relationship just didn't function when I was training at that level. And I wasn't making much work then. That was when my HBO show was on television, and I wasn't creating content. But I will tell you that, like, I spoke about before how much I love running because it enables me to think. I think that was a really tumultuous time in my life. It was when I'd gone from being a struggling guy living in a mobile home and living off of the government to being a successful guy who sold my show, my TV show that I made by myself with my hands. It was just my brother and me, made a whole show, sold it to HBO, and all of a sudden I had money, and I had success, and I had sort of the adoration of my peers, and I didn't deal with it well. I didn't cope with it. And I'm not a big drug user, I'm not a big drinker, and the way that I sort of lashed out against that, or the way that I coped with that major struggle in my own career and my own identity, was by just sort of ignoring the whole world and focusing on athletics. You know, I was training like 6-8 hours a day when I was really in the thick of it. And I think then I would have said that I did it because I loved the sport and I wanted to win. But looking back now, I did it because that was a really hard time for me. I didn't know where I fit in or what to do next. The thing about success is like, you want it, you want it, you want it, and then when you get it, you have no idea what to do with it. Then a dog chases after a car. What does a dog do once it gets that car? Just like chews on the wheel, it doesn't just sit there, what do I do? And that's how I felt. So I always say 2008 to 2010 for me were sort of the worst, when I first achieved success, yet the hardest time in my entire career. A great question.
Okay, the noise in my ear is getting louder and louder as we go on.
Stop.
So one last question from a woman. From a woman, please. There's a lady in the front, in the second row.
There's a young lady there with red hair who's dancing like a Fortnite character. Somebody get her a microphone.
Okay, microphone please.
Who's the microphone guy? Somebody.
He's a little slow on the uptake.
Yeah, he needs an electric scooter.
Okay. Let's see if it gets over there without anyone else.
Hi. Thank you for noticing all the way back. So, two-part question. First, did you get to eat anything Polish? Because if not, we have to fix that. So, did you get any pierogis or something?
Yes, but I'm not sure I could identify it.
All right.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just ordered the Polish breakfast this morning at breakfast, and it was all this stuff, and it was delicious. But I don't know what the hell it was.
Kielbasa, dude.
So,
yeah, okay.
So
Second
the real
part?
question, yeah. What I wanted to know is how do you find your self-confidence in a world where everybody seems to have an opinion about you, right? So your viewers, people who like invite you to stuff like this. So my question is, does your self-confidence in yourself does it come from within? Or is it something that you, how do you avoid the opinion of others to affect your own?
Sure, great question. I say this reluctantly because I don't want it to come across as cynical, but I think you just sort of get to a point, and I was very lucky to get this understanding very early in my life. No one knows anything, and also nobody cares. No one cares about you, no one cares about me. And all the commenters who say things online, they don't care. And I don't mean that to sound so dark or so negative, but what I mean by that is it's like, the only person who really is gonna make me happy is me. And the only person who can really bring me down is me. So I have to acknowledge that like, any negativity that's coming my way, and on the other side of that, any positivity coming my way, I have to take it with a grain of salt and focus on what sort of makes me happy or what doesn't. If it required praise all the time to make me happy, that'd be a very precarious life to live. And if the negativity that one experiences, anyone who puts himself out there experiences, was enough to take me down, that's a very precarious place to live. So I think it requires a kind of dismissiveness. And that's what I say to you, don't conflate that dismissiveness with cynicism, because it's not a cynical position. I think it is a place of real self-confidence to understand that like, those people who say negative things, like, they're thinking about you right now and they're not thinking about you 10 seconds from now. And realizing that is sort of the state of affairs, it's very self-empowering. The only way that I will find fulfillment in life and happiness in life is within. And the only way that I think that I could get depressed or get brought down is when I sell myself short. Not because of things other people say.
Okay, Casey, you have so many questions here,
so many questions,
and the voice is getting louder and louder.
So we're going to do one?
Oh, no, I'll tell you what we'll do, Casey. You have kindly agreed to stay for a few minutes to take selfies with people, yeah?
Yeah, let's eat into the selfie time. Who wants selfie time?
Okay, let's take another question. He's the boss.
If we don't let this young lady right here in the second row with both her hands up ask a question, I think someone's going to get hurt.
Nice and quickly, please, Mr. Microphone. Try and get a little jog on.
Oh wait, microphone's coming. Don't move. The microphone, look, you're right there. Yeah.
I mean, to just lighten up the mood a little bit, because...
Okay, great. I hope this involves dancing.
We all know that you're moving to California, and like maybe sooner or later. But what is the one New York thing that you're gonna miss the most when you move to Los Angeles?
Great question. We are moving to Los Angeles at some point in time, and I should just qualify that I love New York, and the reason why we're leaving eventually is purely because of family. It's very lonely to raise kids without any family, and all of our family is out west, so that's our main motivation. The thing that I'll miss about New York is the thing that I love about New York, and it's also the thing that I've never found anywhere else in the world, which is when I step outside my front door in New York City, I am hit in the face with a story. Every single day, 50 times a day. And whenever I leave New York, I have such a hard time making videos because in New York City, like if you want a compelling story, just step outside. And I also attribute so much of the success of the vlog to that. I think that, the guy who delivers packages to my door became a central character in all of my Marlon, in all of my vlogs, because he's fascinating. And the more you get to know, the more fascinating he is. And when you times that by 20 million people, which is what New York City is, it becomes this very exciting, very inspiring place to live. And everywhere I look in this city, I just see a story. And it's fascinating. And if I get on a subway and take that subway for 3 stops and I come up, and I'm in a different world. And that is such an extraordinarily special thing to experience. And I think an interesting way to characterize that or summarize what that is anytime I'm outside of the States, like when I'm here in Poland and someone says, "Where are you from?" The answer is never the States. The answer is always, I'm from New York City. Because New York City is its own world, and it is such an extraordinary environment to be a storyteller in, and that is the thing that I will miss more than anything. That's the thing that my wife doesn't know that I'll be able to live without, because you become addicted to that. But it's what makes New York City, New York City. That's a great question.
I've just resigned myself. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my job. Well, if you're happy carrying on, we'll carry on with a few more questions, yeah?
Really?
Now it's someone to.
Great.
Let's take a question for the front row down here, Mr. Camera, Mr. Microphone. Nice and quick, please. Down here, front row. 2 guys, you can ask 1 question, 2 halves.
Yeah, you're up.
I'm up. So I have a question about, you're talking all the time about the struggle, yes? And what do you think about the 368 by enabling young YouTubers to come and create something? You're not erasing the struggle, and you're not helping, but making them creating things tougher. Because when they don't struggle, they don't progress, in my opinion. What do you think?
Wait, are you saying that by creating 368, I'm removing the struggle?
A bit, because you're enabling things, and
if we ever achieve that, we will be the most successful version of what I'm striving for ever. But I don't think that we'll ever achieve that. That's like telling anybody who has an aspiration to be a lawyer that law school removes the struggle. I think that the word that I would use is enable. It enables someone to do what they want to do, but that doesn't make it necessarily any different. I think that it still necessitates a level of hard work and perseverance and tenacity on the part of the creator. But when access to tools and access to resources is so limited that it prohibits someone, if there's a way to sort of hand somebody those resources, I think that is enabling them. It's not removing what I see as maybe the most important part, which is that personal struggle. Looking back at my own career, I can identify 50 times when individuals or entities or companies or anyone has sort of stepped in and enabled me to do what I do. I don't think they made it easier for me. I think that was just part of that process. Are we just doing more questions?
Yeah, go next to you. Yep.
Oh, hi, what's up? My question is, when someone mentions your name, I'm thinking that you're all about pushing yourself. So when it comes to the running marathons of 3 hours, for example, it's always like being a better version of yourself. But there is a certain point where you're not able to go further. So you just have to embrace your flaws and just let it go. And have you experienced that moment in your life that you said, I can do it, and I'm the best version of myself right now. So.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think that you can always go further. It's just where you're going further is the question, you know. You know, I don't have the desire right now to be the best YouTuber in the world the way that I did 2 years ago, because that hunger was satiated. And I don't have the desire to be the fastest triathlete in any given race anymore because that desire was satiated. So I think that it's what your appetite is for that is always changing. And as long as you're feeding that appetite with, you know, with a level of aggression for success, I think that you're doing the right thing. A good example is Candace's dad, my father-in-law. He was a great doctor, maybe the best doctor in the city that he lived in. And he retired. So his drive is to no longer be the best doctor. And he's retired now, which means he doesn't work. So his drive now is to enjoy life. The life that he's earned, he spent the last 50 years earning this life. His drive is to enjoy life to the best of his ability. And that doesn't mean he's given up or he's surrendered his ambitions. It just means those ambitions have changed.
If I can follow up, do you think that there is a certain point that you can just tell yourself, knowing that you're not perfect and you can go further, that you can stop and just...
No, I think that I think I'm understanding your question, but I never think that the struggle or hardship should be a reason to back off. I will only back off when I feel like I've achieved the level of success that I set out to achieve. When I started doing a daily vlog, the desire was like, how far can I take this? When I felt like I couldn't take it any further was when I stopped. It wasn't because it got hard or I couldn't do it anymore. There were plenty of moments where I couldn't do it anymore. There's plenty of moments where creating a video every day while raising a baby and a new family and a tech company and myriad other obstructions made it very hard to do, but those were never excuses to give up. I only give up, I only stop on my own terms, and my own terms are that I no longer want to pursue that because I've achieved what I've set out to do. I still want to be a faster runner. I've run 24 marathons, I still want to be faster. So I have no desire to back off on that goal. If it takes me the next 20 years, I'm happy to do that. But there could be a point in time when I no longer want to run and I want to start riding a bicycle. And when that time comes is when I will be, that desire, that ambition will be satiated. I hope that makes sense.
All right, let's take a, yes it does. Let's take a.
There's a young lady right there. Are we still doing questions? Or are we being pulled off the stage? Is that big hook going to come out? Let me give him a mic.
Mr. Microphone is coming. Mr. Microphone's coming. He's getting faster as the evening goes on.
Hi Casey, it really is an honor to have you here, so thank you for visiting Warsaw. So I just wanted to follow up the question about New York. I wanted to ask if how much do you think New York has affected, or the fact that you live in New York City has affected your career, but that I think we already know. But can you imagine any other city where this could be possible?
Absolutely. I mean, the only city I know is New York, but, you know, I was an outcast in the town that I grew up in, meaning that I didn't fit in. I felt like I was always being told I was wrong and that I couldn't. And then I moved to New York City, and all of a sudden no one told me that I was wrong, and no one said that I couldn't. And I always say that, like, New York City is sort of, it's the island of misfits. It's the islands of people. It's literally an island, but it's an island of people who didn't fit in anywhere else. So they go there. When you put all of these people together in one place, there's this kind of social Darwinism that happens where it like weeds out the weak. And you're just left with this like super force of individuals that are willing to put up with the struggle that is living in that city. Because no one lives in New York City. You only survive in New York City. And that is the truth. I mean, I had a shared bathroom in one of my first apartments. My very first apartment, my bedroom was so narrow, I had a futon, and I couldn't make it go flat. I had to sleep on it like a couch. It's not pleasant there. It's not nice there. There are rats everywhere, and bad people. It's dangerous and scary and loud and mean and hard. But it enables something, and you can, so I attribute so much of my success to going to a place where my success could thrive. I don't know the answer if that's unique to New York City or not, because that's the only place I've ever lived.
All right, guys, that was the last question. Now we are going to You don't hear this voice in my ear.
All right, thank God I don't hear that voice.
Guys, we have 10 minutes now with Casey. You can come over and meet him once we finish. I want you to give a massive round of applause for Mr. Casey Neistat.